All right, AP Psych. Looking at the next kind of stage of development. Well, we already talked about the physical with the first screencast. Here we're going to look at adolescent development, most likely cognitive social. We'll touch a little bit on the physical brain changes just to kind of explain the cognitive too. So we look at teenagers, adolescents, maybe. All right. So when we look at our thinking change, one of our main thinking changes we're going to look at is going to be, or the physical change it's going to bring it on is going to be the myelination of the neural networks in the frontal lobe. So what this is going to cause, or how this is going to affect it, is you're going to start to think abstractly. You're really going to start to think for yourself. You're just going to start to look more big picture. What do I potentially want to do with the rest of my life? You may not answer that question right away, but you'll think about it. What college do I want to go to? You'll start to reevaluate potentially religious values, political views if you've had them, or you'll become more politically aware. One thing you'll really start to do is rationalize. Since internally your ego is fragile, one of the big components we start to do is we start to offer, say, other explanations or what other people would label as excuses for missteps, mistakes, or bad behavior. Just because one of the things your brain will try to do under the surface level and under your awareness is try to protect your self-esteem, because your self-esteem, especially at this point, is going to be a roller coaster of peaks and valleys. So it definitely wants to do that. So the rationalize is almost making an excuse. So like if you do bad in a class, it's not totally your fault. It's going to be the teacher's fault. You'll try to disperse blame. You'll try to protect yourself. You'll start to fight hypocrisy. You'll start to notice, especially teachers, parents, other adults, coaches, you'll start to notice potentially hypocrisy of their actions versus their behaviors. You'll start to obviously rebel against that. Start to kind of be more aware of how the world works and life's not always fair. You'll start to hear a lot of, and you'll start to notice that at this point. And one of the other things you start to do is begin to plan for the future. And this is also one of the first things that actually causes us to worry, is planning for the future. So now, with the idea of the myelination of the frontal cortex, the anxiety of the future will start to dampen as the frontal lobe turns on, because now the amygdala is not going to be the total processing center. Brain structure, again, some of the brain changes. One of the big brain changes is use it or lose it phenomenon. Your interests, your skill, what you're good at, your beliefs, interests, hobbies, they will start to dominate your thinking. And then so things that are not necessarily related to them, while they'll still be able to be processed, then they won't necessarily stay. So now we're going to a more efficient brain. And then the frontal lobe, adolescent social development. Big thing here is to form an identity, who I am, what do I stand for. Not necessarily what I want to be. Some people try to find their identity through that, but here we're looking at really your moral compass, your core personality traits. Who are you? So sense of oneself, again, how you fit into culture, society, what's your role, where's your place, technically, not necessarily profession, but how you're going to behave and act. Some people, their behaviors and action will lead them to a profession, but there are some people who try to find their self through their profession. Some teams will adopt a negative identity. They will start to see potentially negative aspects of our culture, or they have been ostracized, bullied from the main culture, so they will develop what we call role confusion, and they will rebel against all authority figures. Whether that be parents, schools, social structures, anything, because they don't see how they fit in. Whenever they've interacted with elements of culture and society, it hasn't worked. They've been bullied. They've been ostracized in some sort of way. So now they'll develop they want to destroy the culture, society kind of How do we develop the identity? You test and integrate various roles, so become involved in new things. They say that's a big thing. Join as many clubs as you can, or at least not necessarily join, but attend the interest meetings maybe. And then your friends will provide you with feedback. When you do something dumb in front of your friends, they're the first to let you know. In some cases, they may never let you forget it also, but you also learn that that behavior or that action, not necessarily kosher, or failure at that action or behavior, they'll let you know too. The importance allows you to develop intimacy. You really can't be intimate with someone until you know yourself. You may see teenagers who have a lot of significant others through their time in high school. Some psychologists may argue that that teenager is trying to find themselves through intimacy, which is the wrong way to do it. And that's why their relationships aren't long term, usually unstable. And that's because they really don't know who they are and they're trying to be intimate, which doesn't work out. And so the last type of social development we're going to look at, and this is also social cognitive, I guess, it's going to be Lawrence Kohlberg. He's going to focus on moral development. He's going to argue that moral development goes hand in hand with cognitive development. So as you develop abstract reasoning or you enter Piaget's formal operational thought, this is where you start to develop these morals. So this is going to show us how we develop our morals, what are the different stages, and those ideas. He's going to use moral dilemmas, like would you steal bread to feed your family, would you kill to save your family, those type of things. He's not necessarily interested in whether they would or wouldn't. That's not the point of it. It's how they justify their actions. So there's going to be 3 common ways to justify those actions. So he's going to come up with 3 stages of moral development. And one of the differences between him and Piaget is Piaget says morals aren't really thought of till teenage years, where Kohlberg is going to say this is actually going to develop before, but it's going to end in the adolescent period. So first stage, these are going to be your pre-conventional. So this is going to be egocentric morality. So sensory motor and pre-operation are going to be our main stages here. Big thing here is what can I gain by following the rules? Some of the ideas would be the only reason a child follows rules at this stage is because they don't want to get in trouble. So ways of thinking about morals. Big thing here is we're going to be concerned with fairness. Fairness and justice are not the same thing. Justice is a more complex idea. If your justice system was based on fairness, then we'd still operate on the eye for an eye law code. So obedience, rewards and punishments are going to be a big deal. So good or bad depends on the physical consequences. So they may not steal the drug in the Heinz dilemma because they're afraid to be punished, or they're going to steal the drug because they want their wife to live, because they don't want to be lonely. But notice there's a lot of personal pronouns in there. The other one is self-interest. How do I benefit from breaking the rules? How can I benefit from following the rules? So again, self-interest, egocentric morality. The conventional, this is where logic comes in. So this is probably going to be your middle school age. This is the fitting in stage. So you will behave how others behave. You necessarily won't want to rock the boat because you don't want to stand out. So you'll kind of conform to what like your parents' ideas of what good and bad people do. So ways of thinking, conformity. We form the schema and concept of what a good person is, and that's how we behave, not necessarily because we would do it, but because we think someone we look up to or someone who is a good person would do. Law and order. Here's the idea that rules are made to protect me, so I need to follow them. If you ask, say, like a fifth grader about chewing gum, they're probably going to say, no, I don't chew gum because it's against the rules. Whereas a high schooler, that would be the law and order, got to follow the rules. A high schooler are probably going to chew gum anyways because they realize it's a kind of a pointless rule. Chewing gum doesn't hurt anybody, so what's the harm in that? So there's the difference between these two stages. Once you get past the fitting in, then you start to look at it from your own point of view. So laws are meant to be followed, not to be broken. That's the idea there. Post-conventional. This is where we're going to look at the abstract thinking. So moral codes are going to be more about ours. So not everyone makes it to this stage. Morality is based on reason, not authority. It's going to go hand in hand with Piaget's formal operational stage. So how you link Kohlberg and Piaget is these last two stages. So post-conventional and formal operational go together. So our ways of thinking here, social contract. You may remember that from John Locke and the Enlightenment thinkers from civics and even world history. So he's going to give us the idea of the social contract, where as long as government is just, we will conform or follow their rules. But once the government doesn't have our best interest, or doesn't have the society's interest, needs to be overthrown. And so we look at the greatest number good for the greatest number of people. The other one is universal principles. And this is really starting to kind of come into play with what we're going through today. Some people are starting to, argue against America's policies. They're starting to see the hypocrisy that maybe America's not always been as just as we claim to be. So they're more likely to stand up and protest, fight, however you want to say it, against the government, which you're seeing more of. So you have a portion of people who are starting to see whether this idea of equality and justice for all is really truly for all, or is it just for the few? And then problems with Kohlberg's findings. He originally stated that girls were less morally developed than boys, which most people would not agree with. One of the reasons he does this is because when he starts this, girls were not necessarily going as far in education as boys. So, of the different age groups he looked at, he got some skewed results based on society's views at that point. So Gilligan's going to do the study and refute this. And basically what she's going to argue that when we look at moral actions, men can talk about it easier and explain it. Females may not have necessarily the words to explain it. But realistically, when we look at this, in moral development, actions speak louder than words with females. So females are more morally developed because they are more likely to act in a more morally correct way. It's kind of like the idea of motherly instincts with that. You kind of go hand in hand. So that's it. We'll do a little bit with the Hines study and show you Kohlberg's study coming up.